Now let's talk about the Indian Rupee. It is having a tough time. Today, the rupee suffered its worst single-day drop in close to 2 months. $1 was worth nearly 84 rupees. In fact, August has been a bad month for the rupee. A few weeks ago, it breached the 84 rupee mark against the dollar. This was an all-time low for the Indian currency, and today it has seen the biggest single-day fall in a while. So what triggered this fall? A sell-off in the Indian markets. Foreign investors pulled some $1.2 billion because panic has been sweeping through global markets. America's weak job data sparked recession fears. And the rising tensions in West Asia led investors to unwind their positions. They wanted to get out of risky assets. They wanted to shift their money to safer investments. So there was a sell-off globally. It hit the Indian markets too, and it ended up putting pressure on the rupee. In the past few weeks, we've also seen some recovery, but today the rupee ended up reversing most of its gains. It lost what it had recovered, and it faces more challenges ahead. The sell-off from foreign investors continues. So far, they have withdrawn more than $2.5 billion from Indian markets. And these are numbers just from the month of August, and August is not over yet, remember. These withdrawals, the withdrawals from foreign investors, have hit the currency, leaving the Indian rupee weaker and the US dollar stronger. Overall, the greenback is in higher demand. The dollar has been appreciating against the yen, the euro and the yuan. Importers are buying the dollar aggressively. They fear that if the dollar appreciates any further, it could make their imports more expensive, because most of the international trade is done in dollars, and this holds true for importers in India as well. Let me explain this with the help of an example. Imagine that there's an importer in India, and they plan to buy a big consignment from overseas in the coming months. They know that they'll have to pay for this consignment using the US dollar. So they're going to need a lot of dollars. After all, the dollar is the world's reserve currency, so most foreign exchange reserves are in US dollars. So Indian importers rely on the dollar too. And when they see the rupee slipping, they try to build a safety net around their business. If they expect the rupee to weaken further, what do? They buy extra dollars from the market, so that if the rupee keeps falling, they won't have to pay more in the days ahead. They won't have to spend more on their imports. That is why they buy dollars. This is what investors call hedging. And right now, Indian importers are doing a lot of it. They're engaging in a lot of hedging. India's Reserve Bank has taken note of this. It is working to defend the rupee. Time and again, the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, has offloaded dollars from its reserves and bought the Indian currency. Reports say the RBI also reached out to leading Indian banks. They were advised to not bet against the rupee in the market. In the next few months, we will see how this unfolds. It is going to be crucial, not just for the rupee, but also for India's fight against inflation, because the RBI expects inflation to rise starting September.
With this high share of food in the consumption basket, food inflation pressures cannot be ignored. Further, public at large understands inflation more in terms of food inflation than the other components of headline inflation. Therefore, we cannot and should not become complacent merely because core inflation has fallen considerably.
He spoke about core inflation. Overall inflation in India has remained around the 4% mark, which is a good place to be. 4% is the RBI's target for inflation. But we are talking about overall inflation at 4%, remember. Food inflation, like the RBI governor said, is higher. In July, it was well above 5%. And a weakening rupee could make it worse. It would drive up the cost of key imports like crude oil. And remember, when oil becomes expensive, everything else also costs more because you need oil to transport these goods. So that's the challenge that India faces. Many experts had hoped that this battle would be short-lived. But India's Reserve Bank seems to be preparing for a longer fight to defend the rupee and to keep inflation in check.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for a future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
On the show today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon has moved across to the West Indies. What can you expect from this?
Hello, I'm Alison Green, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. Today we have a special show.
Start with a report on India's shifting nuclear posture. The first time since India officially became a nuclear power.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Aaron Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.